Welcome to this module. Now, in this module, we'll be going forward and learning the fundamentals of web interactivity, and we are going to be learning about JavaScript. And we will see how JavaScript integrates with HTML and CSS to kind of power up the internet and create all of the different user interactions and dynamic interactivity inside of your web page. So let us get started with iDigitalpreneur. Now, before we jump into any practical stuff of JavaScript, it's important that we understand what JavaScript is all about and what's the context of JavaScript and what's the core definition of JavaScript. So if we talk about the definition of JavaScript, JavaScript is essentially a single-threaded scripting language that is primarily used to provide interactive functionalities to static web pages built with HTML and CSS. So we have been seeing up until so far that whatever web pages that we created, that was static in nature and nothing was sort of interactive at all. And all of those interactions will be included when we integrate JavaScript with the mix. And initially, what you need to understand is JavaScript, let's take back 20, 30 years back, JavaScript was only meant to provide interactive functionalities to the HTML pages and the CSS pages, right? But over the years, JavaScript has basically evolved and kind of entered into all of these other domains like backend development. So with the introduction of Node.js back in 2009, now it's possible to run JavaScript in a server environment as well. And apart from backend, because of the expansion of JavaScript both on the server as well as on the client side of the domain, it has also expanded into other domains like game development. You can go ahead and create interactive games using JavaScript, right? And you can also go ahead and create native mobile applications. There are a lot of mobile frameworks available which kind of works in a very core essence of JavaScript. React Native is one of those frameworks which can help you create mobile applications, and all of that code what you write will be essentially in React, and React in turn is basically just a subset of JavaScript. So you can create native mobile applications there. And it also helps us to create desktop applications. There are some frameworks. One of the most popular desktop application creation framework for JavaScript is Electron.js, right? You can go ahead and create desktop applications which will work offline in your own system without the use of internet. And with the advent of artificial intelligence and machine learning, it's now even possible to use JavaScript to create your own models and train your own models and kind of integrate your functionality of artificial intelligence and machine learning. So you will see that JavaScript has pretty much expanded in all of the different domains of the tech world today. But primarily, the main focus of JavaScript has always been to provide interactive functionalities to the static web pages. And that is what we intend to do in this module. We will be using the concepts of JavaScript to manipulate HTML and CSS to kind of make it more interactive to the user. Now, before we move forward, in the previous slide, I saw that there were a couple of words like single-threaded and scripting language. We need to have a clear context of what these mean. So a single-threaded, whenever we say that a programming language is single-threaded, it simply means that this programming language can only do one thing at a single point of time. And this means that only at one point of time, it can only execute one line of code and its logic. So if you take the example of old programming languages like Java, which is multi-threaded in nature, in Java, it's possible to execute multiple lines of code at a single point of time, owing to the fact that it can multitask, or in essence, it is a multi-threaded programming language. But that is simply not the case with JavaScript. JavaScript can only do one thing at a point of time and it cannot do anything else. But that does not stop JavaScript from doing asynchronous tasks, which is again running parallel lines of code, right? But it does so without the use of multi-threading. And the way it does is via the property of delegation. This is something which is well advanced in JavaScript and beyond the scope of our discussion. But using the delegation property. And what it will do is it will delegate the task of any asynchronous task it finds to the web browser, and it will continue executing its synchronous nature inside of it, hence making the feel of a multi-threaded language being run inside of JavaScript. But in essence, it is still a single threaded programming language. And the next thing that is JavaScript, which is available in JavaScript, is essentially that JavaScript is actually a scripting language. Now, there are two types of programming language which you will encounter. One is called a scripting language, and the other one is basically called a compiled language. So, a compiled language is that sort of a programming language in which your code, whatever code you have written, that gets compiled or that gets built into a format which the computer can understand. For example, if you have worked with previous languages or if you have any idea about Java, whenever we compile or run our code in Java, it kind of converts it into an executable format or something which we call as bytecode, and then that bytecode is understood by the computer and then it is executed. So it is a two-phased execution that goes around it. But when we talk about a scripting language, in a scripting language, code is actually executed line by line without the use of any compilation and building up the program before the actual execution of the code. So whenever you write any scripting language, and we are talking about JavaScript right now, any JavaScript code, it will be executed line by line without the need for any compilation or building. And that is pretty much what there is to the JavaScript. In this module, we'll particularly focus on the basics of JavaScript. So we will see all of the different modern day syntaxes and what are the different ways in which you can create or start creating logic using JavaScript. And then we'll start off with the introduction to DOM, which is short form for document object model. And with the concept of DOM, we will understand how we can use JavaScript to technically manipulate HTML as well as CSS, which is the core functionality of any modern day framework like React or Angular or Vue, because behind the scenes, all of them are simply manipulating HTML and CSS using JavaScript. But we will see how we can do all of that manually. And finally, at the end of this module, we'll go ahead and create a very simple to-do list application using vanilla JavaScript. And vanilla JavaScript is nothing but an alternative slang for pure JavaScript. So you are not using any framework, you're not using any libraries. So you are using simpler JavaScript methods available in the language to create that sort of an interactivity in your application. And this is the entire crux of our module. I'm really excited to go forward with the JavaScript bit, and I will see you all in the further videos.